How's it going, ladies and bruises? I'm Sixkilla. Welcome back to Route Double. We've just finished hanging out in Enna's memories, and now we know her true identity, what she does, and how she fits into the story, and that she has no malice hidden in her brain there. En did not get to her, which is nice. Guess we got to get to the next person who En did get to then, clearly, before they murder someone. Natsuhiko and Yuri return to reality. This time he didn't have the usual headache, and his brain didn't feel like it was swaying. Most likely because Enna was not corrupted by malice. Since he merely connected their minds using sense sympathy, his brain and mind didn't appear to be as burdened as they were when he had to confront Subject En. Eventually, Enna looked at Natsuhiko and spoke quietly. Is it over? Yes. Any malice? None. You were given AD quickly after you found Subject En in front of the cargo lift, so you avoided it. I see, that's good. After saying that, Enna gave a somewhat embarrassed smile. So you know my true identity now then? Yes. Shocking, isn't it? I'm sorry for deceiving you all this time. How many times have I heard that today? Natsuhiko wondered as he responded. Are you okay with me knowing? It was the only way to prove my innocence, but please keep it a secret, okay? You too, Miss Yuri. Okay. Enna fell silent after that. A tinge of sadness filled her face. I see, it's because I read her memory. She ended up remembering many painful memories as well. Every memory that Natsuhiko peeked into, Enna remembered it as well. That was a fundamental rule of sense sympathy. Professor, are you okay? Don't be silly, no need to worry about me, it's all part of my job. And with that declaration, Enna's facial expression returned to normal. More importantly, everyone listen up. Miss Sadami is attacking Captain Kasasagi right now. Huh? Hold on a second, why would Louise attack? Oh, I know. Louise must have gone crazy because of that BC, right? Probably. There was no proof of that, but Natsuhiko just nodded for now. He had no time to explain Watase's true identity. Mr. Tenkawa, can you send telepathy to Miss Sanamiya? I try, but I can't get through. And I don't think Salu will lend an ear to what Watase has to say either. And what if Natsuhiko goes to Louise and directly explains the situation to her? No, wait, he's heavily injured, you know. We can't have him do something so dangerous, can we? Then I'll go. Huh? What will you do if you go? Save the captain, of course. And with that, Jun flew out of the room before anyone could stop him. Jeez, she's so impatient. Enna spoke with a sigh as she gripped her gun. I'll go too, that girl's not going to have any strength on her own. Then I'll go too. No, it's too dangerous. Just stay here. Will you be okay, Professor? Don't worry about me, I might not look like it, but I'm a super civil servant who safeguards society from the shadows. And with that grand declaration, Enna left the shelter. Grandiose. Leaving only Natsuhiko, Yuri, Ukita and the unconscious Masato behind. Will those two be okay? Salu still somewhat sees Professor Tsubakiyama as hostile. I don't know how she feels about Jun though. She might think Jun's in cahoots with Watase since she's already also a rescue worker, but nevertheless, if Watase, Enna and Jun all work together, they could probably succeed in apprehending Salu. Though someone might get hurt in the process. Damn it, for now, let's check on Watase's situation. Natsuhiko tried using sense sympathy on Watase. And immediately afterwards, Natsuhiko's vision switched with Watase's. You could hear Watase's rough breathing and the sound of dragging feet. Watase appeared to be desperately running through a connecting passageway somewhere. Did he injure his foot? What's wrong with Watase? Natsuhiko? Watase seemed surprised to have heard the auditory hallucination again after so long. Don't start at me like that, you jackass. What, was that telepathy? Well, yeah, but you don't need to speak out loud. We can hold a conversation if you just think the words in your head. I see, that's a big help. So what's the current situation? Watase thought of the answer in his head. Kinda driven into a corner here. Salu attacked me and I'm in the middle of running away. Where are you? I'm on B2, at the connecting passageway between Area 2 and 3's outer ring. Salu twisted my ankle in Area 3, so my foot's all messed up now. So I barely managed to escape here. It was at that moment that the sound echoed behind him. Watase turned around to see the security gate open and Salu appear. Damn it, she caught me. Natsuhiko, send us some telepathy. Should be easy for you, right? I don't think it'll work, but... Natsuhiko temporarily suspended sense sympathy with Watase to quickly send telepathy to Salu. Salu, it's me, can you hear me? Watase's on our side, there's no need to fight. Natsuhiko repeatedly sent that message, and then once he reinstated sympathy with Watase's senses, he saw Salu approaching Watase. She showed no reaction. The telepathy clearly didn't get through. No good, she's not reacting. Looks like she's taken AD. Well, that sucks. Looks like I've got no choice but to use brute force. Watase took a defensive stance. The pain in his ankle propagated to Natsuhiko. I probably can't do this without hurting her. I'm sorry, but please overlook that. She may be small, but that girl's a beast. Hold on, Watase. Can't you lure Salu here? I've been trying to do that for a while now, but it's been a lot harder than I thought it'd be. Watase addressed Salu. Hey Salu, I just got some telepathy from Natsuhiko. Forget about me and head to Area 5. He's waiting for you over there. I don't believe a word you say. It appeared Salu didn't believe him in the slightest. She was unable to imagine other people's feelings, therefore it was probably safer for her to doubt everything and trust nobody. I don't think she's infected with malice. Watase, get out of there. Go towards Area 2, pass through Area N and return to the shelter. You sure? Isn't Salu your... Forget it, just prioritize getting out of there for now. We're sending Jun and Professor Tsubakiyama your way right now. Natsuhiko ended sense sympathy after giving that answer. Once his own senses returned, he heard Yuri's voice. Hikarin, you look kind of pained right now. Did you sense sympathy? Yeah, no. I know that Watase's in real big trouble right now. For now, Natsuhiko sent telepathy to Jun and Ina. Professor Jun, can you hear me? Watase's currently heading towards Area 2. His foot's injured, please go help him. And then he used empathy to receive Ina's reply. Understood, Area 2 it is. She was no longer closing her heart. Once he confirmed she received his message, he pondered some more. Watase's already beat up senseless too. So it's not unexpected though, considering how he's been running around for nearly 8 hours to save everyone. In that case, I'll try too. Natsuhiko made up his mind and spoke to Yuri. Yuri, I'm going to Watase. Huh? Hikarin, don't tell me you're worried about Captain Kasasagi. No, it's Salu I'm worried about, that's all. Natsuhiko answered that way, despite knowing that if Mashida were awake, she'd call him a damn tsundere. If I go then, it'll be all over in a second. Besides, I really can't stay here put forever. Yuri fell sullen at those words for a second, but then she readied herself and spoke. In that case, I'll go too. You too? It'd be hard for you to walk around by yourself, and if you happen to come across Lieutenant Tachibana, you might have to repair her memory on the spot, right? Natsuhiko was worried about taking Yuri with him, but she was indeed right. Okay, let's go together. Mr. Ukita, please stay here and watch over Mashida. Very well, but in that case... Ukita took the gun out of his pocket as he spoke. If you're going, then take this pistol with you. You might run across Miss Tachibana along the way. There are only 2 bullets left, but I suspect it'll still function as a threat. Ukita spoke in a stiff voice. They still didn't quite know what Kazami's intentions were, so it was probably better to be safe than sorry. Understood. Natsuhiko took the pistol and slung it on his belt. Okay then, Yuri. I'm sorry, but can you lend me your shoulder? Okay. Natsuhiko borrowed Yuri's shoulder and tottered out of the shelter. Watase squared off with Salu as he thought over the conversation he just had with Natsuhiko. They're sending Mortabe and Teach my way, huh? Guess the kids were able to erase their malice. They just left Kazami and the girl he was fighting right now. Now I'm faced with a dilemma. How do I get away? Should I try playing things her way now? Salu lunged at him as soon as he thought that. Watase mustered his strength and pushed Salu back, away with a sidestep counter. Salu, now on the floor, did a backward somersault and stood up. Watase took the chance to turn around and run off. You could tell Salu was chasing him. Pain rushed through his injured ankle with every step he took. But as long as I can get there... He soon located his goal, a security gate. Watase swiped his card through the slot. And right as the gate was opening, he destroyed the card slot. What are you doing? He heard Salu shout at him from behind. Watase pressed the close button on the other side and ran to Area 2. Salu chased him. Watase stood in front of the closing gate to block her and then shouted, I know you can't trust me, but this isn't the time to be fighting. Go to Natsuhiko and the others, they're looking for you. Bewilderment ran through Salu's face for a second. It was at that moment that the gate shut, separating Watase and Salu. Phew, that sure was close. I have to get back to the shelter before Salu circles around to me. Watase limped on over toward the shelter. If he used Area N as a shortcut, he could get to Area 5 much faster. He steeled his resolve, dashing through the connecting passageway that led to the inner ring. Damn it, my feet hurt like hell. Will I make it? Watase endured the pain, opening the gate, only to see someone there on the other side. He thought it was Salu for a moment, but he was wrong. Someone a bit taller than her was walking towards him through the dimly lit hallway. Watase's eyes widened when he realized who it was. Uh-oh. Kazami? Yes, it was none other than Kazami. She was carrying someone in her arms. Someone with deathly pale skin wrapped in something like a hospital gown. It was the body of Subject N, the one that mysteriously vanished from the cargo lift room. Captain? Kasami muttered that in a quiet voice when she noticed Watase. However, Watase was too perplexed by the sight before him. You're the one who moved the body? Yes. But why? Because this girl is my sister. Because she's Nagisa. Watase felt every hair on his body sticking on end. Now that he thought about it, she called Subject N by that name when she first saw her. Hold on, Kasami, that girl's called Subject N. N. Well, N is the first letter in Nagisa's name. No, you got it wrong. She's a communicator who was born in Labo. Your sister has been long dead. Silence! Kasami interrupted Watase before he could finish. She then gently placed Subject N's body on the floor. After that, she sidled on over towards Watase. You have no right to say that at all, do you? After all, it's your fault that Nagisa died. Yes, that must be it. What? Naturally, Watase wasn't responsible for Nagisa's death 9 years ago. Yet Kasami was looking at him with bloodthirsty eyes. How did it come to this? Hey, tell me why, Watase. Why do I have to kill you? Kasami's words were growing more and more devoid of any meaning. Watase started shuddering. This is... To think being infected with malice can drive someone this far. Kasami's already lost all trace of rationality. After leaving the shelter, Natsuhiko borrowed Yuri's shoulder, and together they reached Area 3. Salu, where are you? Salu! They called out Salu's name to find her. Not much time had passed since Watase had encountered her around here. But if Watase had gotten away from her here, then there was no telling where they'd find her, when they'd find her. And with that thought of mind, Natsuhiko searched around Area 3. Sorry, I can't English anymore. It's been a long day, including the connecting passageway between the inner and outer rings, and the emergency stairs. Salu, are you around? They couldn't find her. Crap, where is she? Maybe she went to another area. But not a moment after they whispered that, they heard her voice. Natsuhiko? They turned around. She was right there. Salu? Ah, I finally found you! Salu smiled in relief and dashed towards Natsuhiko. Salu's small head sank into Natsuhiko's solar plexus, but Salu paid no attention and just kept nuzzling her head against him. I was so worried I thought that man might have killed you. It's okay, I'm a little roughed up, but I'm alive. Now that you mention it, how'd you get here with those injuries? Oh, I borrowed Yuri's shoulder. Huh? Apparently Salu hadn't noticed Yuri's presence until then. Salu took a long, hard look at her before murmuring in confusion. Yuri? Your childhood friend? Yes. I'm confused. The professor told me Yuri died 9 years ago and you've been seeing a phantom of her ever since. Oh, I see. Of course Mum would have you play along with my madness. But Yuri was actually alive. For 9 whole years she's been trapped in this facility, just like we are now. His explanation only seemed to make Salu more and more confused. I guess it's understandable. I mean, it confused the hell out of me too. That was what Natsuhiko was thinking, but immediately afterwards Salu said something completely unexpected. Yuri? What is it? I feel like I've seen you somewhere before. Huh? Natsuhiko gasped. Even if she'd heard about the phantom issue, Salu shouldn't have been familiar with Yuri's appearance, so how... What do you mean? Have you met before? Might be my imagination, but when I saw Yuri, I felt somehow nostalgic. Wait, have you met her before, Yuri? No, I think it's just your imagination. Since Hikidens talked to you about me before, it just doesn't feel like this is the first time you met me, that's all. Does that sound about right, Salu? That's probably it. I haven't come across you today either. And besides, the professor showed me a picture of you from 9 years ago. It's probably because I saw that. Right, so allow me to introduce myself again. Ignoring the perplexed Natsuhiko, Yuri spoke to Salu. Nice to meet you, Salu. I've heard a lot about you from Hikiden. You want to see Marshallon, don't you? She's in Area 5, so we'll take you to her. Okay. Yuri took Salu by the hand and began to walk. Then I'll carry Natsuhiko. Okay, thanks. He felt a little ashamed at having such a small girl carry him, but he didn't want to waste time debating it. So Natsuhiko quickly accepted the offer. They could head straight for Area 5 by taking a shortcut through Area N. And with that thought in mind, they passed through there. Salu, are you okay? You don't feel bad anywhere? You mean because of the radiation? Yeah. I'm fine. I injected AD about 40 minutes ago, so it should still be effective. My head hurts a little, but it's nowhere near as bad as last time. That was probably because the WX particle energy levels were decreasing even in Area N, and then Natsuhiko suddenly remembered something. Hold on a second. Natsuhiko spoke up and got down from Salu's back. What's the matter? Is there a problem? Well, Yuri... Natsuhiko gave Yuri an eye signal and sent her telepathy. I want to check if Sully's infected with malice or not, just to be completely sure. Huh? Yuri's face froze at that message. Even if Sully's under the influence of AD, BC should probably still work on her in here, right? I think we should do it while we've got the chance. Area N had a reading of over 15,000 MS microsieverts just 2 hours ago, so the reading was probably still over 4,000. But Yuri frantically shook her head. There's no need, Hikaden. Don't you believe in Salu? Salu max Yuri 1. Yuri 1? Brutal. I do, but what's scary about that malice is that you aren't aware of it yourself, right? Natsuhiko's thought was that they should do it just to make sure nothing was wrong, considering everything that could go wrong. Then let's check to see if there are any floral-scented memories or not. That's all we need to do to know if she's infected with malice or not. For some reason, Yuri was being almost uncharacteristically obstinate. Why is Yuri so against the idea of diving through Salu's memories? She knows why Salu should know her, right? Is there some sort of connection between Salu and Yuri? Once he pondered that question, suddenly a vision of what he saw within Ina's memory flashed before his eyes. This article's about the Androsay witch hunt, as well as a vision of the day Salu transferred in. I lived in Androsay. Communicator A and Salu are both from Androsay. And when he looked at Salu's face, he felt she somewhat resembled Communicator A. No shit, she's a splitting image. I've been saying that the entire time. The only difference is this bit of hair. That's just how she does it. Huh? What is the meaning of this? He didn't understand the reason why, but he had a feeling it had something to do with Yuri's odd behaviour. Since Communicator A spent the last year of her life inside Labo... Hold on a second, Yuri. There's something you know about Salu that I don't, isn't there? Is there some sort of reason we shouldn't dive into Salu's memories? No, it's just... we don't have time. Yuri fell silent. Salu then interrupted. You two suddenly went quiet, what's wrong? Well... It's too hard to explain, so Natsuhiko just gave a non-committal answer. It's just, there's something we need to do, and so Yuri and I were discussing it via telepathy. Telepathy? Yuri's a communicator too? Yes, I am. So can you use telepathy and empathy and... Just those two? Well, there aren't any other BC abilities besides those two, right? I see. Right after she said that, Salu took a deep breath. I've solved the mystery. Huh? Actually, it's been bothering me a little. There are too many unnatural points about my past. There are very few details in it, despite there being 13 years worth of content. Don't you think so too, Natsuhiko? Yeah. True, Natsuhiko did find it somewhat bizarre that her parents wouldn't let their daughter out of the house at all, but what about it? I finally know the answer to the reason why that is. Salu gazed at Yuri and spoke. Yuri, you manipulated my memories, didn't you? What? Natsuhiko doubted his ears. She manipulated your memories? When? Wait, hold on. Have you two even met before? Thoroughly confused, Natsuhiko looked to Yuri, but she did not look particularly surprised. Salu, you remember? Just a little bit. When I saw your face, it sparked a memory of September 9th, the day before I met Natsuhiko. The keyword memory manipulation, Area 0, your room. I don't remember the details, but I feel like I owe an irreparable debt to you. Salu's words confused Natsuhiko even further. Yuri, is what Salu's saying true? Upon hearing that question, Yuri nodded in resignation. Yes. The truth is, I falsified Salu's memory once before. Why? There was no other way. There were things she needed to forget for her own sake. Yuri, can you return those memories back to normal? I can, but you might be better off not knowing, you know? That's why I manipulated your memories in the first place, Salu. Knowledge of the truth might do nothing but sadden you. Are you sure you want to know? Salu answered Yuri's question on the spot. It does not bother me. Please restore my memory. I want to know the truth. I take that over living a lie. Natsuhiko pondered as he heard that statement. She was exactly right. Averting your eyes from the truth meant you could not move forward. Salu needed to know the truth in the same way he did. Then, should I leave it to just you to dive into Salu's memory this time, Yuri? No, I want you to see it too, Natsuhiko. Huh? I have a vague feeling of what the details of my memories are, so I want to let you see them too. And if you don't mind, I want you to support me. Sally's honest words pierced Natsuhiko in the heart. Hikaden, I want you to join in too. I want you to see what it is I've done. I want you to see our past. Alright. Natsuhiko nodded at those words, and thus, hand in hand with Yuri, he tried using synth sympathy. It was a memory of when Sally was still in France. The sights she saw spread before Natsuhiko's field of view. Sally sat in front of a piano, thinking to herself, my entire world lies within this estate. Eventually, Sally's tutor entered the room. Louise, it's time for practice. What are we playing today? The tutor answered by giving Sally her lesson plan for the day. A new song today. Ravel's Gaspard de la Nuit. Play it with feeling, with emotion. Sally nodded and began to play the song. Her pale fingers wove smoothly over the ivory keyboard, but though her hand reproduced the beauty of the emotional melodies, her heart felt nothing. Sally was born and raised inside this estate. For some reason her parents would not let her leave the grounds. Naturally that meant she did not go to school. Instead she was surrounded by the company of tutors of all sorts, and received training in just about every field imaginable. And perhaps as a result of the tutor's excellence, or perhaps the brilliance of Sally's all-encompassing talent, Sally had barely reached the age of 10 when she had gained a pool of knowledge both deep and wide. It's just as Sally told us, Natsuhiko thought to himself as he watched that memory. The sight before him agreed with what Sally had told him of her past a few days ago, but at that moment Yuri's voice echoed in his head. That's not it, Hikaden. This memory is a fake, a false memory I created. I knew it. Yuri had already told him that she had falsified Sally's memory, but why would you do this? Because there was no other way to save her. What's that supposed to mean? Let me restore the memory to how it was before I falsified it. Salu's real memory. At the moment Yuri muttered that, the sight before them faded like mist, and beyond the veil of mist lied another, different sight. What is this? Yuri continued as Natsuhiko recoiled in bewilderment. This poor girl has been shouldering a fate even more cruel than mine, so please, support her. It was a cold, gloomy room, almost like a prison. Sally stood still in that room, thinking to herself, my entire world lies within this facility. Facility? That word triggered red flags in Natsuhiko's mind. When the door opened, it was not a tutor that entered the room. Yui, come out. But a woman Natsuhiko knew well. It's time for experiments. As Dr. Tenkawa entered the room, Sally asked her a question. Whose memory are we transferring today? Professor Emeritus Kagano, an authority on fluid mechanics. Fluid mechanics? Not interested. You might actually find it interesting once you understand it, you know? After all, it only takes a moment. That's how she's learning stuff? By just copying memories from other people? Dr. Tenkawa was indeed right. Sally nodded and followed her outside the room. Other researchers were waiting outside. They brought Sally through the underground garden and stopped in front of Subject N's room. There they blindfolded Sally and bound her feet and hands. Beyond that door was Subject N. Anyone who wanted to meet her had to be either completely bound or injected with AD. Dr. Tenkawa and the other researchers opened the door and brought Salu into Subject N's room. Welcome back. They heard Subject N's voice. The researchers soon responded. We're starting now, Subject N. Starting memory transfer experiment phase 2, trial 316. From number 3, Subject N, to number 2, Subject Y. Begin sense sympathy. Okay, so that's Y. Sally was Y, and Yuri is Y too. And with that signal, a flood of information flowed into Sally's head. It was the memory of the Fluid Mechanics Authority, or whomever it was that Dr. Tenkawa spoke about earlier. Ugh. Sally groaned. Though it only took a moment each time, Sally could never get used to that feeling. Even though it was only memories that were being written onto her brain, it felt like even her own mind was being overwritten. Done. But as soon as Subject N gave the word, the bizarre sensation faded. Roger that, now withdraw Subject Y. Sally was then taken out of the room again. Once they were in the underground garden, Dr. Tenkawa took out her PDA and handed it over to Sally. Yui, try solving this problem for me. On her PDA screen was a problem relating to fluid mechanics. In August 2015, a solid body flow pattern was confirmed near Jupiter's south pole. The following data table represents a two-dimensional model of that flow pattern. Based on the data, explain the mechanism behind the formation of the flow pattern. Roger. Sully took the PDA and smoothly solved the problem. Dr. Tenkawa looked at Sully's solution and then spoke. Yes, that's correct. Naturally. It was no surprise, but that problem itself was made by the very same fluid mechanics authority whose memory Sully had now had. Thus, there was no conceivable way Sully would be unable to solve it. Successful memory transfer confirmed. Memory transfer experiment phase 2 trial 316 complete. Dr. Tenkawa spoke those words into a voice recorder and then addressed Salu. That finishes up your work today. Let's head back to your room. Understood. And with that answer, Dr. Tenkawa took Salu back to the room she started out in. This is Salu's one and only unconditional role. To be part of Labo's 4 years and going memory transfer experiment. The subject matter of the experiment was simple. First, Labo would invite guests with technical expertise to come to the facility. After putting a guest to sleep with drugs, they would quickly bring them to Subject N's room. There, Subject N would apply sense sympathy to steal all of the guest's knowledge. A skilled level 6 communicator is able to handle memories inside a human mind almost as if they were digital data. The communicator could copy and paste the memories into their own mind, as well as bestow their own memories to a third party. Such tasks were easy, assuming one could manipulate intracerebral BC particles at will. Furthermore, the entire process only took a negligible amount of time. The guest would be left with a memory gap, but all Subject N had to do was fill it in with a fabricated memory. Once the drugs wore off and the guest woke up, they'd not remember a thing. They would not even be aware that anything had happened to them. It was an extremely efficient, perfectly imperceptible theft of trade secrets, the backbone of an industrial espionage effort created by Labo, Budokume City, and a certain corporation. It's a well-planned system. That was what Salu thought. There are several ways of inviting the guests as well. Sometimes they'd be invited directly with made-up business. Sometimes they'd visit Labo of their own accord. Budokume City Hospital was another entity in on the deal, and thus there were cases where they'd drugged patients who had useful knowledge and transported them to Labo. Thus Labo obtained knowledge from visiting guests and applied that knowledge for use in its own facility. In its greed, Labo also stole trade secrets that had no direct relation to BC in order to sell them off to other research facilities they had connections with. Salu's role was to be one of the final cogs in the process. All of the memories and knowledge Subject N stole from the guests were transcribed onto Salu's brain, as a backup, so to speak. Salu was thus a spare brain for Subject N. That said, Salu didn't think much about it. She'd already been burdened with that role for as long as she could remember. Just once or twice a week, the professor would come and bring her to Subject N's room and back, just like today. And as long as she did that, she received all their living necessities. All necessities, except for freedom, that is. Good work today. Dr. Tenkawa thanked her as always, but Salu noticed her voice was just a little bit quieter than usual. Professor, what's wrong? It's nothing, I'm just a little tired. We've been busy recently, you see. Salu was relieved. As long as the professor said so, it was probably just that. I'm sorry, but I got matters to attend to, so I'll be going now. I'll show up again later. When's the next appointment? It might not be for a while, actually. Subject N hasn't been well lately. I see. Sully felt glad that she wouldn't have to deal with that troublesome sensation, but at the same time, she felt a little lonely, and that the appointments were diminishing. I'll be sure to tell you when an appointment's scheduled. See you later. And with that, the professor left the room. Salu gazed at the shut door. As long as nobody opened the door from the outside, it would never open. Sully thought she would have a bit of free time until the next time the professor came. Sully herself wasn't quite sure of how long this had continued. Such a trifling past had sunk to the bottom of her vast, oft-rewritten pool of knowledge. But what she did remember was that when she was younger, she had a different sort of role. If I'm not mistaken, that was the experiment to inundate the body with WX particles. In those experiments, Sully was exposed to a WX particle-filled environment created in Area N for extended periods of time. Exposure to such an environment could artificially raise BC aptitude, or at least that was the goal of the experiment. But Sully showed no results. The experiments failed, leaving her with a rank F aptitude she was born with. Compared to back then, any experiment would be better. Sully was thankful for those experiments ended 5 years ago. The current memory transfer experiment hadn't had a single failure. Unlike the experiments in the past, these ones had a definite purpose. Although she was backup, Sully was unable to leave and gained all sorts of knowledge. She proved that even knowledge on how to perform physical techniques could be inherited. By the age of 6, she had a complete understanding of Kant's critique of pure reason, and was able to identify its points of issue from an existentialist perspective. By the age of 7, she solved the mystery of the zeta function that had been plaguing mathematicians across the globe. She also proved Riemann's hypothesis. By the age of 8, she inherited the knowledge of an elderly pianist and successfully played the extremely difficult piano piece Gaspard de la Nuit. By the age of 9, she had learned all sorts of athletic techniques ranging from artistic gymnastics to ball games and martial arts. By today, at the age of 10, Sully had the knowledge of 316 specialists of all sorts of fields packed within her brain. And thus they became a monster. The amount of knowledge in Sully's brain had undeniably exceeded the apparent limit for human beings. Her swelling pool of knowledge was her entire life's history, and before she knew it, it was the very proof of her existence. 3 weeks later, just as Dr. Teikawa had implied, there wasn't a single experiment since the last one. Sully spent the whole time alone in this room reading a book. What she read was sci-fi novels based on the themes of self and memories. The story involved a scientist attempting to create an electronic brain with a sense of self, and in that process was the following excerpt. The self is formed by memories. Humans decide their wills and behaviours based off their own memories of the past. But I still do not quite understand the process behind this formation of the self. If one were to gather a sufficient number of memories, would that necessarily form a self? One would assume that as more and more memories are accumulated, the self would become more and more defined. Let's take for example the process through which an infant first begins to speak. After an infant is born and they hear their parents speak, the infant gradually appears to memorize sounds. At first the infant does not know how to utilize its memories. But one day, as if the puzzle pieces in the infant's brain finally snap into place, the countless disjointed memories become one connected network. I see, so that's it. Stringing these sounds together is a way to convey my will to other people, and thus the infant begins to speak. And its once isolated self connects with the outer world. This is one process of the formation of the self. And as the infant connects its accumulated memories, it uses them to further nurture its own self. But does this effect only apply to the brains of living beings? As you and I both know, no matter how much data you store on a high-capacity disk, the disk does not spontaneously form a self. Why is such an ordinary occurrence in nature impossible for human hands to recreate? The novel's content was philosophical, so it was far detached from the type of adventure stories that Salu liked, but she still found some parts thought-provoking. Maybe I'm something like the high-capacity disk this protagonist mentioned. What's particularly similar is how neither of us chooses the knowledge we gain. But there was nothing to be gained by just pondering that fact. She perceived herself, others, and everything in the environment around her simply as the way they were. Just then the door finally opened again after weeks of being shut, and in walked the professor. Here we come out. For an experiment? No, today's a physical examination. Let's go to Area 5. That would mean Salu would make the rare departure from Area 0. Since she was a little fed up with the tedium, Salu happily nodded at the professor's words. Alright, I think we need to wrap this one up because we are out of time for today, but I am very curious to see her connection. Like I've been saying from the very beginning that she looks exactly like Subject A. Why? Is she a clone of Subject A? Is she Subject A's child? Why does she have no aptitude for BC when Subject A was like an S-rank aptitude? Naturally, presumably. Naturally S-rank as opposed to artificially created like Natsuhiko or Yuri. But I guess we'll find out. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.